being here. I appreciate you taking time out. I'm very excited about this particular one after especially being in the school system for as long as I have and serving the children of South Carolina. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy.
Awesome.
Back to you, Jessica.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, so I would like to introduce you to LaRon Barton. He is going to talk about the school to prison pipeline. So really excited to hear what you have to say.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you very much, Ms. Gianni. I'm really excited to be a part of this series, and I'm really jazzed to talk to some folks from South Carolina. I believe Jess is the first person that I've ever met who actually lives in South Carolina. From what I hear, it's a beautiful state, lots of very nice beaches. So hopefully you all will be able to get back to that weather soon, so you can enjoy the beaches. Just a little bit about me. My name is LaRon Barton. I'm a writer, author, and speaker. I've written 2 books. My first book was Straight Dope, a 360-degree look into American drug culture. What I wanted to do with that book, I was inspired by a writer by the name of Studs Terkel. If you have not heard of Studs or read any of his books, then after this presentation, please go to your local bookstore and or Amazon.com and buy some of his books. He's an incredible writer. And what Studs would do is that he would write a book and he would just pose a question and he would write the book around that. And so what I wanted to do, I'd always been fascinated with drug culture, and like, why is everyone, why does people do drugs? Why are people addicted? And so the question of that book is that, why is America so inundated with drugs? And my second book, I wanted to do something different because I'm a big fan of love stories. It's just, for some reason, it's fascinating, like how and why people fall in love. So the second book was also inspired by Studs. It's called All We Really Need Is Love: Stories of Dating, Relationships, Heartbreak, and Marriage. And the question I wanted to ask, or questions, is that, how do people find love? How do people keep love? How do people fall out of love? And how do people get back into love? So those 2 books are currently out right now. I'm also a published writer and essayist. I talk a lot about race, mass incarceration, politics, business, tech, and dating. You can find my pieces. They've been published in places such as the Harvard Business Review, Black Enterprise, Salon.com, 7x7 Magazine, Your Tango, The Good Men Project, Elephant Journal, and just various other news and magazine periodical sites. I'm also a 3-time TEDx speaker. I gave my first TEDx in 2018. It was called How I Overcame the Fear of Stuttering. From there, I gave 2 more TEDx's last year. The second TEDx was called The Power of Sharing Your Story, because I believe that everyone should be heard. I believe that everyone should have a platform to talk about who they are, as well as their experience and what they went through. And my third and final TEDx is called The Vital Importance of Documenting the Moment. And this TEDx was about why it's important for particularly African Americans to take charge of the narrative whenever we are brutalized and or shot by the police. I think it's important that we write our own stories, because the dominant narrative is never really in our favor. So that's about me. And as I said earlier, today's discussion is going to be about how we can dismantle the school to prison pipeline. We're going to kind of break it down very, very quickly, and after that, I would like to have some very spirited discussion. This presentation is set into 3 parts. What the school to prison pipeline is. We need to have a concrete definition of what it is, how it's perpetuated through the education system, and what we as a community can do to stop it. With this discussion, I want everyone to feel as if they can participate, that I want people to feel as if they are heard. This is a safe space. This is a brave space. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm not expecting you to agree with 100% what I say. My mother doesn't agree with 100% of what I say, and she birthed me. So, so there's definitely going to be some disagreements. That's fine. That's what learning truly is all about. All that I ask of you is to please be respectful. Let's not talk over anyone, and let's also give everyone the chance that they have to say something. Anytime within this discussion, if you want to raise your hand and say something, please just say, "Hey, LaRon, I have something to say." I don't want this to be like your garden variety Zoom discussion where I'm just, rattling off stats and I'm just talking through slides, because I'm pretty sure that we set through at least 2 or 3 Zoom meetings a day, and I don't want to do that. So, any questions so far? Anybody unsure? Anybody want to say anything before we jump into this? Jess?
I'm just really excited to hear about what you have to say. Really, I've been looking forward to this for the past month.
Fantastic. All right, cool beans. Well, let's rock and roll. All right. So, what is the school to prison pipeline? It's a term that is used to describe policies and efforts to funnel kids from classrooms to jail cells. This is a term that has been around since the 1990s. It's also referred to as the school to prison link, school to prison nexus, and school to jailhouse track, because literally what it is that we are essentially either preparing children, or we are suspending them, or we are having them come into contact with the juvenile justice system, which then sort of grows them into going to jail and unfortunately going to prison. The school to prison pipeline came around in the 1990s. If you notice, there were quite a few school shootings. I believe like one of the more famous one was the Columbine shooting, and because of that, things such as metal detectors were placed in schools. Police officers started to appear in schools. I remember when I was in the 9th and 10th grade, and when we started seeing just like metal detectors everywhere. Not to date myself, but we would sort of be pat down and we would be searched, and sometimes our bags would be searched, and people would have to wand us down, and we would walk through metal detectors, and it's almost like psychologically this is preparing you for prison, because these schools, they don't look too far off from penitentiaries. So we're going to talk about how the school to prison pipeline is perpetuated. First off, we need to discuss what are called zero tolerance policies. Again, this was the zero tolerance policies were an outcry, a response to school shootings and violence that were happening all across the country. And so what had happened was that these policies were unleashed into schools across the country. So if a kid or if fellow students, got into trouble, if they were doing something silly or just innocuous, like being caught stealing food from the cafeteria, if there was a scuffle, if there were drugs found, if I believe if it was things such as kids making out, or just even talking back to a teacher, these kids would start to be suspended. And from many different types of suspensions, expulsion happens. So what's really important to talk about the link between kids being suspended and the school to prison pipeline is that when a kid is suspended or if they are quote unquote kicked out of school, right? They are 2 to 3 times more likely to come in contact with the juvenile justice system. They're 2 to 3 times more likely to get in trouble with the police, to commit crimes such as vagrancy, to steal. Because the thing about school is it's not about just the education. It's not about the academics, but school, there's also a very important socialization part to school. So kids learn how to interact with people that are different than them. Kids learn how to deal with disappointment. They learn how to deal with expectations, victory, loss. And so when you remove a child from that environment, from them getting that important piece of life, it essentially sort of sets them back mentally. And if you see towards the left, the victims of zero tolerance. So 4 students groups who are disproportionately impacted by zero tolerance policies. Obviously, students of color, particularly Black and brown kids, low income students, students with disabilities or special needs, as well as LGBTQ students. So if we focus on the students of color, many times when a child has missed school, say consecutive days, and just going off of my experience, if a child missed X amount of days, then they would be asked to leave the school and possibly even start up that school year. Unfortunately, in communities where I come from, a lot of times the kids may have to stay at home to watch their siblings because their mother or father has to work. Many times, the children may have to take up a job after school to support the family. And so when you have when you have zero tolerance policies, and when it's sort of blanket approach, it doesn't allow a lot of nuance when it comes to how kids are treated and how kids live in this society. Also, regarding the students of color, there's no secret that that racism is perpetuated throughout the education system. Black boys are about 4 times more likely to be suspended than white boys with the same offense. It's almost double with Black girls. I believe Black girls are about 6 times more likely to be suspended or exposed from school. So we have to factor in how these zero tolerance policies are administered. Any questions on this so far, you guys? Jessica, what do you think about what we're talking about so far?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to me it really didn't make any sense, when a child misbehaves, that you're gonna just send them home, because I mean, not really learning anything from that. They're just learning that
Absolutely.
they get to stay home and play their games or watch TV. So that never really made sense to me. I never really had to go to school with the metal detectors or being searched or anything like that, even at my kids' school. But I can't imagine how it must feel for those that do have to go to school and and they're kids, you know, they don't know what this is. They don't know why this is happening. And this could really have a negative impact on their mental health. So, maybe there's something that, you know, somebody can do or that we can do to change it. And I think that people are kind of coming up and people are learning more and more about mental health and how it can affect the kids, you know, everything that you said. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jay, what do you think about what's been discussed so far? Okay. That's fine. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Another factor of how the prison to school pipeline is perpetuated are student resource officers. So this was yet another phenomenon that came into play in the 1990s. You know, again, going back to when I was a student, like I graduated high school in 1996, and so I remember that all of a sudden we just saw police just kind of walk the halls, and I was like, wow, like, you know, why are cops here? Student resource officers, again, they were implemented to keep kids safe, but in actuality, they don't really do that per se. I'm pretty sure, you know, we've all seen the videos of young Black boys and girls being assaulted by these SRO officers in school. Believe that one of the more famous one was that there was a young Black girl. I don't know if she was being if she was not responding positively in class, but an SRO came into the classroom and basically drug her out of her chair. I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone want to say something or so? Or okay. So the SRO drug her, like physically snatched her out of her chair and sort of drug her on the ground. There was another video that happened recently where an SRO had slammed a kid to the ground. So, being that they are police, and again, race comes into play. Look, in the mass incarceration system in America, for every 800,000 people, I'm sorry, for every 100,000 people locked up, 8,000 of them are Black men. That is, when you have numbers that large, that's not an individual choice. That's a systemic effort to incarcerate Black men, right? There are more Black men locked up in the United States than there are women around the world. I believe the last time I checked, it was almost 800,000 Black men locked up. So that is a sustained effort to essentially imprison us. And it starts with the student resource officers sometimes. You know, these officers, they can mistake a little horseplay for violence. They can possibly become physical. And so when a child comes in contact with these officers, that can sort of expedite their journey into the juvenile justice system, into jail, and then finally into prison. Because one thing about crime, especially in the United States, is that once you get a record, it becomes very, very difficult for you to not get in trouble, because once you start on that road, it's kind of hard to get off that road. This is another reason: lack of mental health professionals. So this is something that I want to stay on for a couple minutes. So in public schools today, according to the ACLU, 14 million students are in schools with police, but no school counselor, nurse, or social worker. To break that down in a more granular space, I'm going to give you all some stats. 1.7 million students are in school with police, but no counselors. 3 million students are in schools with police, but no nurses. 6 million students are in school with police, but no school psychologists. And 10 million students are in school with police, but no social workers. So the reason why that this is important is because we often we do not consider that how a child may be acting out is due to mental health issues. We all blanket them as being quote unquote bad. So how do you deal with a bad student? You send them to the principal's office. You get them suspended. You label them as special needs. And I mean, whatever you can do to sort of jettison this child out of your classroom, out of your school, because you don't want to deal with it, because you either don't have the training or you don't have the resources. And so that is another reason why the school to prison pipeline is so active. Many of these schools in just in the ghetto where I'm from, I mean, just piss poor resources, old books, old computers. I mean, just like teachers having to teach just super large amount of students in class. Like we're cramming kids into classrooms and just antiquated equipment. So they don't have the resources and they don't have the training to actually be able to deal with kids who possibly have mental health issues. And so this is why people are just often just sent to the principal's office. Miss Gianni, I'm just curious, like, how do you feel about what we've discussed so far?
Well, I can tell you a couple things.
Yes, ma'am.
In education for as long as I have, one very important thing, I do know that there are a lack of mental health professionals in the school. It's one thing that is going to be on our platform that's getting ready to go out for the South Carolina PTA. The other thing is that I am not a believer in expulsions. I do think that where we're pulling our stats from is just when you tell me that the reading levels of third grade students tend to predict the number of prisons we build. I find it shocking and appalling. But that is what is preached and used throughout our systems, and our country has to do a better job of evaluating those systems. And just because they've always worked at some point in time does not mean that's how they need to continue to be. We have to evolve and grow, and that is very hard for people to get outside their own head, because we don't always tend to if you don't think like I do, then I can't be your friend, or I have to say something about you. And
yes, ma'am.
That's modeled for our students and our children, and that's not the way things should be. So I couldn't agree more with everything you're saying. I just think it's going to take a lot of education and a lot of pushing of thoughts to get people to think differently.
Absolutely. And Miss Gianni, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Anyone else have any questions? Jess, I believe that Jay McNeil, she was having trouble unmuting her line. Jay, are you able to do that right now? Guess not. Okay, she must be a Mac user. No, I'm kidding.
I can actually unmute her if
Great.
she can say something in the chat if she wants
Well,
to.
while she's doing that, this is Lavonda. I wanted to add a comment based on what you said. It also boils down to the teachers that you have at the school. I can just think about when my son was in elementary school and he had an African American male teacher. I said, well, I noticed you never called me. He said, that's because one, I understand boys and they know that I'm not going to play with them. You know, versus with some of the women, it's more like us, you know, we try to baby them and do as much, and then after a while, we're sick of them. But the men are stronger. And I think that makes a difference when you have a
Right.
male teacher, one that looks like you, or just a strong male teacher that shows the boys how to be men.
Absolutely. You know what? And ma'am, that's a very good point. That's something that that we're definitely going to get into later. Anyone else?
Pam would like to say something, and then after Pam, Jamie would like to say something. So go ahead, Pam.
Yes, ma'am. Pam, yes, please.
I'm understanding what you're describing. Like I mentioned, you just described Title I school districts. And I really feel that Title I school districts are the main source for the prison pipelines. These are large districts with single parents that's struggling to work if they still have a job, but we're still counting truancy when they're not responsible for electrical devices that they can't get into virtual schooling for, and we still have no consideration. We really need to be able to get more counselors to be able to stick together and advocate. Our senator and state educational superintendent just went against a request for staff. Schools Title I districts requesting to be put in the top rank for the vaccination. But you want all of us in these small buildings with more than 22 children with these cheap plexiglasses that still does not protect anyone. What are we doing?
Absolutely. No, like, you know, it sounds like just like a lack of resources, right?
Exactly. A lack of resources that we could really receive, but you see what their decisions are.
Yes, ma'am.
The
No,
children in these classes eating lunch with people right beside them, those cheap plexiglasses, you pick holes through them. I have a third grader who bites his. He's already eating off the side of his, and we're still taking this, but that's nothing. According to what the superintendent stated, they've given us enough, and that's all we need. We need to do what we can't went to school for.
Yes, ma'am. No, like that just. I mean, it's one of those things where one thing that I learned about public school and funding is that when you live in the rich zip code, you know, for some reason you get more funding. Go figure, right? But like I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. So my first 2 years, I went to a school that was severely underfunded, and and again, like metal detectors. It's just like I don't think that I've ever been to a school that had a school nurse, and I mean, to me that was something that I saw on TV. So. But Pam, thank you so much. Like, you made a lot of really good points. Jamie, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I'm Jamie. I've been a PTSA for 6 years.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also a mother of two boys. Okay. But what I have seen and experienced and working firsthand, close up to with the teachers and everything like that, and listening, is my big word is what you mentioned when you opened up this whole webinar, was respect. So some of these kids, I don't know how to word this, but like as a teacher, I feel like that, yes, they want the kids to respect them, but it needs to start with them. They need to respect the children first to teach them how to respect them. Too many people or teachers, I won't say staff, so teachers, are too quick to judge these kids by their appearances, by their lack of income or whatever, just say appearance. And
yes, ma'am.
if people can stop, the staff can stop and actually don't look at a kid as a number, but look at him as a child. You know,
Right.
he's considered bad. But what made him bad? What's going on at home? Stop and sit there and talk to
Absolutely.
him
Absolutely.
and give him some respect and pull him up and be like, baby, you know, what's
Mhm.
going on? You know, if you need anything, you know, put more heart. We need more heart in the schools. I mean, I just had my neighbor do a conference today and she's a straight A, and ever since with virtual, I'm going to use them for example. She's a straight A student, so ever since virtual, she's going downhill. Well, they also have custody. Their mom's on drugs, so they just had a conference today, and the stepmother has video of the teacher being mean and very disrespectful to this child who's only 8 years old. No, excuse me, 10.
Right.
And so during the conference, the stepmother was like, you know, I'm a very hands-on mom, and I stay at home, raise these kids, my stepchildren, which she considers them hers. But like I'm saying this for example, because this just happened today, is that, I mean, once they got done with the meeting with the principal, the guidance, and the teacher, you know, she had to explain what's going on in this child's life and stuff like that. And the teacher's domain just totally changed. So without going any further, they're just too quick to judge and just stop and learn, or to get to know about these children, you know. But I mean, they may not be taught respect at home. So a teacher is with your children more than the parents actually are, if you think about it, you know, technically. Right. So teach these babies respect, show them respect. That's how they're going to learn respect. And I think we just need more, I want to call it heart. We need more heart in the schools.
I totally agree with that.
I'm just very passionate about this. Sorry.
No, Jamie, like I'm right there with you, and it's you know, and I'm glad that you said that because we're going to cover that we're going to cover that portion pretty soon. So let's move on. But I do want to get to everyone now. Okay, so how can we prevent the school to prison pipeline? So we need to understand ACEs, and to all the educators out there, you're probably saying, "Duh." I learned of ACEs very recently. One of my best friends, she's a teacher, and we had a discussion about this. And what ACEs is, it's called adverse childhood experiences. And what that essentially means is that it was a test that was co-facilitated by Dr. Vincent Felitti and Dr. Rob Onda. And what they did was that they asked 17,500 adults about their childhood experiences with mental, sexual, and physical abuse, incarceration, parental mental abuse, substance abuse, parental separation, and domestic violence. And so with the ACEs test, from my understanding, if you had one of those, if you, let's say you experienced mental abuse, that would be one. If you experienced domestic violence, that would be another one. And what this wonderful woman on the left found out, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, who's now one of my heroes. She's the Surgeon General in California. She found out that the higher your ACE score, the worse your health outcome. So people with ACE scores of 4 or more are more than 12 times as likely to commit suicide. So going back to I believe what Jamie said brilliantly earlier, is that many of these kids are coming from places where they've had challenging childhoods, where they have a tumultuous home life. So the school sometimes is the only sort of stable environment that they have. I've always said, and I was talking to a friend of mine about the coronavirus, and I said, I don't know if if kids should go back to school early. And she said, well, LaRon, when they are not in school, they are missing things that they cannot get at home. And I didn't understand what she meant until I truly started to learn about ACEs and how mental health really impacts students and the teacher's ability to deal with a student. You know, Dr. Burke said early childhood toxic stress. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Vincent Felitti and Dr. Rob Anda determined that early childhood toxic stress is a precursor for many social problems. So, 67% of us has at least one ACE, right? And again, it could be parental mental illness, substance abuse. Maybe your parents got divorced. You know, maybe you experienced domestic violence. But many kids coming into the school system have more than one, and so that's going to affect the way that they act. So instead of tackling this as a mental health issue, go see the principal, go to the office. We're just going to expose you from school, and so the kid is not getting what he or she needs. And once again, we're just funneling them through the criminal justice system. So how can we prevent the school to prison pipeline? So I'm pretty sure that if I have some educators on here, they've heard of Maslow's hierarchy. Dr. Gianni, I'm sorry, Miss Gianni, have you ever heard of Abraham Maslow's theory?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm just curious, what is your opinion about it?
Well, you're gonna laugh about. Well, I don't know if you're gonna laugh. I do think that our students needs, when it comes to, so if a child comes to me, and I really have been spending a lot of time on social emotional learning,
yes,
and the number one thing, if their needs are not met before they come in the door, it makes learning very difficult. So we spend a lot of time, my students are my family, but their parents are also my family. I can't even tell you, we're connected. And if there is a problem, I'll give you an example of one thing I do every morning. We all have bad days. Teachers have bad days. Parents have bad days. I don't always know if they just walked in the door or if they got yelled at in the car, something happened at home the night before. They could have trauma going on. So we kind of do a system that if you're having a rough day and you know that you just need to sit quietly and do your work and you need to be taken from discussion or just be by yourself, that's okay. We can do that. Now, if it continues for a pattern longer than 3 days, then I'm probably going to pull you to the side and have a conversation with you and find out what's going on. But we all need that time. So if we're not meeting their needs, and that means that sometimes they might need to miss class to go talk to a counselor or just step away from a situation they're uncomfortable in. So I think those things are very valid that he teaches.
Yes, ma'am.
And I kind of follow along with those because I think love is important, and I think feeling that you belong is hugely accepted. And that's a little tough sometimes in middle school and high schools because, kids like to be mean, but we really work on a family environment in the classroom and accepting that our differences are beautiful and are in every aspect of our life. It's what makes us unique and makes you and me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that, Miss Gianni. I'd like to go through the five needs within the classroom. First off, physiological benefits. Are kids fed? Are they hydrated? Do they have enough sleep? This is so important. Going back to the coronavirus, the main worry of mine with these kids staying at home is that, are they being fed? It's no secret that sometimes at school, lunch or breakfast and lunch could be the only meals that they are getting. So is the kid coming to school, are they do they have a proper nutrition? Are they getting enough water? Are they sleeping? I mean, it's going to be hard for a kid to want to pay attention, just as Miss Gianni said, if they're not rested. Like, if there's a great quote, I love it. It's hard for you to dream when you have an empty belly. It's hard for you to concentrate when you're starving, when you're hungry. The second one is safety. Are the students in a stable home? And again, like, is their home life safe? I believe Pam had talked about. I'm sorry, not Pam, but Jamie had talked about these kids possibly coming from unstable homes. Are the kids bullied in school? I mean, and this is something that many LGBTQ students have to face. Are we looking at these students being bullied? Are they being picked on because they're different? Miss Gianni just said, when kids get into middle school and high school, they start to become mean, which goes into love and belonging. Are the kids being accepted for who they are? When I was in the 11th grade, that was the first time I ever met someone who was transgender, and I was like, wow. And the thing about that person is that the school that I went to, it was a fine arts school, and they had accepted her for being who she is. And we had quite a few LGBTQ kids in our school, because they knew that school is the school that they could go to and feel like that they are accepted. So you have to ask yourself, does your school foster an environment of belonging? Does your school foster an environment of come as you are? Esteem needs. Are the students affirmed? A kind word, a pat on the back, just saying, hey, you're doing a fantastic job, or that was awesome what you did. When you got up in front of the class, that was brave. Or just a hug. Let me ask everyone on this call, how impactful is it for you to sometimes just kind of put your arm around a kid, or just talk to them? How important do you think that is to them?
Very important. That can be all a child needs in the morning to start a positive day. That special hug.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jay. What do you think about that? Do you how much do you think positive affirmation can impact a child's day, or life?
I'm so glad that I figured out, I minimized the little control box. And yes, I do have a Mac, LaRon. I'm going to beat you up when I see you. So thank you guys for having me. Just to give you some context, because I get the feeling that all of you, I am friends with LaRon. I asked if I could sneak into this. I'm a professor at the University of San Francisco. So I'm also an educator, and I love what everybody has shared so far. I don't remember who said it, but somebody mentioned about like asking kids, like if they're going through something that they should, that if they need to just work quietly on their own, that's okay. And that, I love that, because one of the things that I used to do when we were in person, and I'm thinking I should probably figure out a way to implement this now on Zoom, was just have people paired share. Like, what do you have to say about your day, whether it has sucked or whether it's been great, to just get it out so that you can actually fully be present for class. And that was always something that was great. And then I know I had, like somebody had mentioned how the teachers bully the students. Like I've heard as a teacher, you hear all of this and it just like breaks you when that's what you love, what you love doing. And so, I mean, for me, at the end of every class I teach, I have my students say, I'm smart, I'm lovable, I'm worth it. And they have to yell it as loud as they can. And my whole thing is about having them look at the negative things that they say to themselves or that they hear from outside sources and present to how badly we speak to ourselves. And then, so for me, positive affirmations and giving that extra hug or letting a student know, like, you know what, you can talk to me after class. It makes such a profound difference in their, like, just knowing someone cares about them makes their world sometimes. It's the difference between no one caring and one person caring. So I'm all for it.
Very powerful, Jay. Thank you so much. And the final one is self-actualization. Is a child going to reach their full potential? Are we working with the child to get their best out of them? I remember when Joe Paterno, when he was released from Penn State, and I'll never forget this conversation with my brother. I asked him, I said, why are they doing that? I mean, he's just a coach. And he said, LaRon, when you are a football coach, you're not only coaching them for the game, but you're shaping boys to be men, and you have to lead as an example. So the reason why that I bring that up is that, are you helping them to become the best versions of themselves? I was very, very, very fortunate to have an amazing high school teacher named Mr. Stan Banks. And, I'm going to talk more about him later, but Stan Banks really worked with me as far as a writer, as far as a speaker, as far as a poet. He was a surrogate father to me, pretty much. He's one of the 5 most important men in my entire life. And without Stan Banks, pushing me to be better, pushing me to write deeper, to write something, more, I don't know where I would be. So, self-actualization is just incredibly important. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, and this is a very important point. I believe that someone else, I believe it was my superstar, Miss Gianni. She said that we need teachers that look like the students. I think diversity in teachers is abnormally important, to put it bluntly. I know the last time I read a stat, it was almost or a little over 70% of all teachers are white women. And for whatever reason, that it is what it is. But in the world, when you don't see someone that looks like you or that comes from where you come from, there's sometimes you can feel less worthy. Let's be honest. This is why representation is so important. Believe someone had said earlier that, and I think that it was Jamie. She had said that something about it's having a black man with these kids. Like, they're not going to just send them. They're not going to send them to the principal's office. They're going to be able to relate to them in a certain way. And I think it's incredibly important for us to not only have more diverse teachers. I mean, bless you, Latino teachers, Asian teachers, LGBTQ teachers. I mean, because school is a place where we're preparing these kids to go off into life. I mean, this is sometimes I believe school is the last regimented place for a kid to have structure before they go off, because some kids may not go to college. Some kids may go off and do other things. So going back to Mr. Stan Banks, it was important for me to see a black man who was successful, who put me and other folks in check, who talked with with authority. Like I can't tell you like just how valuable seeing and coming across different kinds of teachers, because what one teacher may see as a problem, that could be cultural. Maybe they're just simply lacking that. And so this is why we need a diverse array of different kind of teachers. This is a very important one. Let's stop treating kids like criminals. This goes back to the SROs. Look, these officers are essentially cops, and again, in the criminal justice system alone, Black people are, when they are arrested for the same crime as white people, their sentences are 20% longer. So just from the offset, we're being viewed as criminals. There needs to be more trainings on how to deal with trauma, psychological findings, implicit bias, dealing with your own racism. And that, for me, that seems like a lot, because teachers are going to college to become teachers. They're not trying to be psychologists. They're not trying to be sociologists. But I believe that when you are a teacher, you are like, what they call an all-purpose jackknife, right? You're this, you're that. I mean, you're sometimes the only person that this kid is going to be listened to. Like, you're the only person that sometimes this kid can only confide in you. So how does everyone feel about that? I mean, do we all agree with this? Do we not agree? Jess, I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, it's, kids are absorbed a lot, and the students, when they see, their parents or, the grown-ups in their lives do something or act a certain way, they're more likely to do the same. So when they see more diversity, especially in the classroom, I mean, they're there for 8 hours a day. When they see more diversity in the classroom, I think that's going to open their minds and say, okay, it's okay to be different. And especially when you have the educators and the teachers that constantly say that out loud and show empathy. And I think that would really help a lot of this, and it's really sad that some of these children, they come to school to get away from home. And until
Right.
I really got involved in the PTA and at my kid's school, I didn't really understand that. And I think it's really, really sad. And people like me, we want to help the world and we want to save the world, but you just can't. So,
Right.
I mean, if you can, and my take is if I can make a difference in just one child's life, that would make me very, very happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Pam, did you have any thoughts on this at all?
I totally agree with your thoughts, but I really feel with the issues with teaching now and understanding the percentage of the different cultures, how could we expect more African Americans to really want to go into education when they're growing up in these Title I districts being mistreated by educators and
Right.
misunderstood? That's something else we still need to consider. And then when I say mistreated, understanding the different cultures, because this one bites on his finger when he gets nervous, he's put out of class. It's better for him to do that than to get nervous and start stabbing himself. We need more training. The unnecessary trainings that we have on mandated reporting, mental health should be another part of understanding our students.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I have not heard from Kinja. Your thoughts on what we discussed tonight. What do you think about what I've said?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, thank you. I am a high school educator. I work on a college campus,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I've seen the worst and the best. And I think that one thing I want to bring in is the PTSA can be a bridge for building community and understanding culture and honoring diversity by bringing families into the school to kind of bridge the gap of thinking that it's kind of us against them. It kind of is like to me, a preventative measure to kind of help de-escalate if there is a concern or issue, if they can do something beyond, and this is, goes above and beyond, just like a parent night, that one open house, but, maybe having a quarterly type of deal where it's a community resource type event. I've seen those kind of things work to kind of work with this whole school to prison pipeline to prevent that when we are honoring cultures and honoring that diversity on a regular basis. And it helps to establish relationships. And what I've learned and kind of just always kept with me is that when we allow parents, I say allow, I shouldn't say that, but right now, a lot of people aren't allowed in schools for safety, but beforehand,
Sure.
Parents were discouraged from coming in because of incidents, and the schools are kind of locked down because of school shootings that were
Yes, ma'am.
happening. So we've kind of locked the community out of the school, and we're back at square one. So I look
Right.
at the PTSA as being a kind of like a hub of being able to maybe bridge that gap and get parents kind of involved in maybe some unique way. I haven't figured out what that unique way is yet, besides Zoom more. I don't
Sure.
know if we want more Zoom, but I just see that as being a key to sidestepping
Right.
the school to prison pipeline. And I discovered that, I guess, my first or second year of teaching, that if you invite parents in, they'll come. Even if it's just showcasing regular old, notebook work or whatever, they love seeing their student in a different light. And it really opened up my eyes. And I was like, we got to do this all the time. I mean, we got to have them in as, just open door policy. And we
Absolutely.
had less discipline issues. I mean, it was just, I've only written 2 referrals in 20 something years of teaching. And I think it has to do with just wanting to do the relationship building. I think it really helps.
I like that because, I'm sorry, ma'am. Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that you're absolutely right, because studies do show that children do better when, their parents are involved at their schools. I mean, it's a study,
Mhm.
it's been proven. So the more parents we can get, to be as involved as they can. I mean, we understand that some can't be, they're working full time, you know what I
Right.
mean? But simply helping your child with your homework, or what their homework is showing interest in their education. And as a parent, when you show interest in their education, they're going to show interest in their education. So what you just said is just aligns with like the PTA's mission and everything. So that's awesome. I really like that.
Thank you.
Fantastic. April, did you have anything to add? Oh, I'm sorry. Was there someone talking?
It's Miss Trigiani. I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
love when I hear teachers just speaking that the relationship is so crucial. I can't tell you. I always look at it, and I think sometimes when you think beyond yourself and how you want your child treated, and I also think back to when parents have been in school, maybe they didn't have a great school environment, but isn't that our job as educators to be embracing? Because when I went to school, one thing that I remember is our school was the hub of the community. Everybody was involved in that school, and you couldn't get away with nothing. Someone knew you. And now,
Right.
like all this crazy stuff, and I'm like, what happened to the sense of everybody gets crazy if someone tells their kid, you don't need to act like that? Well, sometimes a mom needs someone to reach over and say, you acting like a fool, and you shouldn't act like that, and you better respect your mama. And I tell my kids now, you respect your mama, you respect your daddy. It doesn't matter. You're going to be one day. I said, and of course they say, no, I'm not. But I think that's the point, because if you have that experience in school, and there is not a mama or a daddy that I have ever met that does not want the world for their child, and they hope and they dream and they really want to believe that comes true. And I
Absolutely.
just don't know what happened to our society to think that that's not our job. And teaching is a tough job. It's probably one of the most, it's the toughest job out there. I'll take anyone on it any day. But I just love your discussions, and with all of you, we might stand a chance of changing things and really, really impacting education. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. April, did you have anything to add at all?
So, Kinja, am I pronouncing that right? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that right.
You are. I'm fumbling with my phone. Okay, there. Yes, you did. You did. That is.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Kind of going back to what Kinja was saying with inviting parents in and making sure that educators understand diversity. I'm originally from Atlanta, but I teach in South Carolina now. And at my last school, they invited parents in all the time, and it was a very diverse school. So they would invite parents from different backgrounds and ask them to bring a dish from their culture or a dish from home.
Right.
And it was really eye-opening and really fun to see all the parents come and the kids, and we got to taste different type of cultural foods. I thrive on diversity because I love learning, and that way I get to learn. So I think that when I coming to a different state and seeing where certain groups of students or parents are left out, whether it's whether it's intentionally or inadvertently happening, that lack of diversity, I think, is hurting the school in a way.
I wanted to say one more thing about that. Thank you for sharing that, April. Not seeing the diversity, or how should I say this? I'd like to see PTSA boards, executive committees, and different responsibilities of volunteer lists be reflective of the school community that it serves. And I think that may kind of speak to what you're saying in South Carolina. I'm not really sure where the wheels fell off the wagon, but I think at this particular point, I think that would be a really, I think a benefit if we were able to kind of just start there and say, we're inviting you into this particular thing. We're looking for people that bake or whatever the job or responsibility is, and welcoming them on that level. I think it may kind of trickle down and disperse and have people get more involved from there. I don't know. It's something I just kind of consider. I'm on the board at my son's school, and I am the only person that looks and sounds like me. And so, I think about who's not in the room and whose voices are not being amplified because they're not there to listen or to speak, and I don't know if it's inadvertent. I don't want to say it's purposeful, but I'll say this: sometimes the meeting times is even a gatekeeping thing.
Right.
Like if,
Absolutely.
it's only noon, if we're not diversifying the times that we're only meeting at noon. Who are we leaving out with the noon meeting? And I don't know if that's something that we've even considered, but even bringing that up, it gets contentious. So, just looking at that across the board at different schools in different places. And I too am in South Carolina. I don't know if I said that before.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off that. I think
Yes,
it's really important. I think you're right. I work at a 100% free and reduced lunch school. We're the largest ESL population in the state. 1/3 of our school are ESOL and non-English speaking students at all levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we have to step outside that gap and learn how to use talking points to speak to our families, because it translates for us. That's our largest population. Our second is African American Black, and then third is Caucasian, and then Asian follows. So we're very diverse in that setting, and a lot of people don't realize this is tucked right off of in Charleston, South Carolina. So a lot of people don't realize about us and a level of conversations that are happening in that school about meeting the needs of our students is it's overwhelming sometimes because there are so many needs. And we don't have, and it's funny because this school that I work in is not a PTA school because we have other avenues that they use. And our principal is just like, I can't get anyone to come. And I said, then you got to do it at night and you got to do it. And he says, but who wants to be here at 8 or 9? I said, I will. So we are slowly trying to push that because that's when parents are getting off work. And I'd hate to say that the areas that they work, they're getting off 7, 8, 9. So we are trying to work in that area to allow the voices at the table. And you are 100% right. 100%. Keep advocating.
Okay. Believe we have time for one more comment.
I'd like to chime in if I could. I also want to piggyback off of everybody. Hi, I'm Joy Brown. I'm actually here in Charleston, South Carolina also.
Hey, Joy.
And I think it is really important that including all families and all types. Like I got on the board, I'm the president, and I don't look like everybody else. I tell everybody we're not your mama's PTA. Like we want to make sure we get as many people included as we can. Part of that I feel like is that I try to, especially with COVID, it's a little more complicated, but we try to include people, even if they can't participate. Like we make sure that they're included, even if they're not, be able to spend time, just that we're touching them. You know what I mean? Like that we're reaching out. And it's kind of like going back to that Maslow's pyramid, it's that same parents are the same way. Like they need those things too. So they need to just know like, hey, we're here if you need us. Like I think that's really important. I do have a couple. So one point you talked about earlier about SROs.
Yes,
I'm in an elementary school, so it's a little bit easier, but our SRO is great because it gives kids a positive look at a police officer. So he reads stories to the kids and he gives them all high fives, and he shaves his beard. He lets them shave his beard in November. He's really great SRO. And I think that's a great opportunity that, could maybe be used to help if they're going to have them anyway.
Okay.
My question is in both PTA trying to, I tried to start a diversity, inclusivity committee, and I was kind of shot down because they're like, oh, we already do that. Well, I feel like it can offend people because they're like, oh, well, we're not racist. So, you know what I mean? So we don't really need that, but I think that everybody can use it. I think that it's an important thing to have. And 100%. So how do we fight that? And then even implicit bias in our teachers and educators and administrators. Obviously, there's a difference between being an outright racist and implicit bias. Like you don't necessarily know. So how do we point that out to people that it's something to work on? Because I feel like some people close their ears.
Right. That's a really good question. That's a really good question because I mean, it's funny. It's like, this, and I always pose this statement. I believe that, that we will all agree that, racism does exist, but, no one can tell me who is a racist though. You're like, no one knows racist folks. Right. So it's like, even though like it's been a practice that has been done for hundreds and hundreds of years within the United States, no one can admit that they're racist. And what you said, it kind of hits the nail right on the head. People, when they hear the word racist, it's like they would rather not be labeled a racist, but they don't mind living in a system that continuously perpetuates racism. As far as what you can, well, first off, I believe that that in any kind of PTA environment, any type of social environment where there's people of different races, race needs to be talked about. I mean, if if you're not talking about that, you know, you have to ask yourself why. And I mean, and if people get offended from pointing out that there is a systemic effort that disenfranchises people who are not white, then I would rethink, you know, associating with that person. I mean, I would ask them point blank, well, why are you so hesitant to talk about the issue that has impacted the world unlike any? Secondly, as far as implicit bias amongst teachers, I think that's 100% needed. You know, again, it kind of goes back to many teachers are not exposed to different cultures. You know, many teachers may have not ever dealt with African American students, may have not ever dealt with Latino students. And I'm not saying that we're so super different, because we're not. The human experience all around the world is the same, right? But what I am saying is that there needs to be some sort of cultural competency on this. Can everyone see me at all? Or okay, great. All right, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I muted? Can everyone hear me? Oh, okay. All right, great. Now? All right, fantastic. So yeah, there needs to be some sort of cultural competency that needs to be implemented. And when it's not, you know, we're just sort of kidding ourselves. So I'm in 100% agreement with implicit bias testing and just simply being honest. I mean, you know, racism is a real thing. Again, like black males are 4 times likely to be suspended than white students with the same offense. Black girls are being suspended 6 times more than white girls. So I mean, it's, you know, like with that, it's not an individual choice after that. So that's pretty much all that I have today. I want to say thank you so much. This was awesome. You guys are incredible, amazing. This was one of my favorite talks. I have such love and respect for teachers, because I mean it's a damn shame that, you know, past governments have not given you all the respect that you are due, but just teachers rock. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come here. Jess, thank you so much. Like, you know, and I'm just truly blessed. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. This is probably, you know, one of my favorite webinars so far, and we need to talk again, and maybe we can, you know, partner again and do another one, and you know, we'll keep in touch. So yeah, I'm blown away by all of everyone's discussions, and this was just so meaningful, and this really opened my eyes up to a lot. Just when you think you know everything, you know, you learn more. So I appreciate everybody else being here today. And LaRon, everybody's thanking you in the chat box. So
yeah, no, like thank you all so much. Like I'm just so like just really you know what, so April, you asked me what are the organizations, what are sources of organizations can we get involved with to break this cycle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to follow up with Jess in a couple of days, and I'm going to send out some links. Let me put in the chat. I want to put in this TED Talk that I saw. Again, this is by Dr. Burke Harris. It's an incredible TEDx. You know, that I think that you know, people need to really watch. It's called how childhood trauma affects health across a lifetime. So let's definitely watch this. I would love to come back and just simply gab some more. We could have went on for another hour. So like you all were just, and I love this. I love this group. So thank you so much, Jess. We will talk soon. South Carolina, y'all are just yeah, awesome. So you guys take care.
Absolutely. We'll
Yeah.
keep in touch, and
I
you
know.
all have a fabulous night. And LaRon, thank you again. I cannot thank you enough.
No problem. Always.
Yeah, we'll chat soon. All right. Bye.